none of those exchanges were like reasonably slappable on an invoice, but like I'm seeing in real time like the results that him just being a better artist is reaping, him as an artist and his followers as people. And it's like, fuck, like I guess I've got to keep being this lizard, because there are other people that do this, but they're like, hey, you should say this, it'll get more people addicted to lean.
You're like you're like Rick, what's his name? Isn't that the guy who does a lot of the, like, he just advises bands around
Oh,
like
Rick
the sound?
Rubin.
Rick Rubin. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've done
Videos.
a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've done a lot of
Except
that.
he doesn't know anything about music, Rick Rubin. Not like technically. He just like he says that his ear like just tells him what he likes and doesn't like, and then that proves to be
Yeah,
helpful.
he's not going to beat the best meat chef serving you a steak, but he'll serve you a meal that features steak that's better than that guy can. Is
Sure.
how I'd
Yeah.
put Rick Rubin. Like, you don't get Rick Rubin to tell your virtuoso how to be a virtuoso. You get Rick Rubin to give the listener a version of that virtuoso that they'll actually enjoy.
Right.
That's how guys like that work. It's a priceless skill set, and most people with it get like their confidence knocked, and they stop being that person, and they lose that ability. Rick Rubin, I'm pretty sure he's a session musician, and so he was like a go-to guy for like you make a rock album with him, and like you're not going to need to hire a drummer or a bass player unless it's complex. So it was like really convenient because he was like actually laying down the pieces that he was telling you that you needed. So it was like it was really good. Like Eminem said that he's like one of the few people he's worked with where he's like, I can't touch that guy as a musician. And like I don't know if that's necessarily true in terms of greatness. You've got to remember Eminem produced Renegade. He produced Runnin'. Biggie Smalls and Tupac, the song where both of their verses are put on posthumously, that was produced by Eminem. He actually made the beat on that and put that song together. Like he's got credits you don't know belong to him that are great. But he was just like, he said he was just blown away by Rubin's ability to be like, we need this. So he walks over, picks that thing up and plays it. He's like, yeah, I can't fuck with that. I can't fuck with that at all. It's pretty amazing when you look at what makes an amazing producer, because quite often it's not that they're really masters. That's Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones he's just better than you, and that's why you come to him to produce it, because he's just better than everyone. Like Quincy Jones is fucked up. There's no compression. You know the whole Thriller album? Zero compression. Not on the tracks, not on the tracked instruments, zero compression in the whole thing. He just knew how it was supposed to sound, and he didn't say yes to any recorded live take that wasn't going to fit in that. Like, microphone placement, telling people how loud or soft to play, choosing them based on their ear for dynamics. He's making the music during these processes. It's fucked. And processes we don't even pay attention to, let alone make decisions in. He's making Thriller out of them.
Yeah. I think you'll agree with me, Tristan, as well, that sometimes people who don't have a real technical affinity to the music have an advantage, because they rely really on the feel and sound as a listener would, as opposed to how a musician would. And sometimes you really need that. Otherwise, you're actually missing the bigger picture. You're not falling into the music that's being created. And there are a lot of really sort of technically proficient musicians who lack soul, I think, because of that.
Yes. Well, they're technically proficient because they lack soul. That's that's the thing. And then they're even more insidious because their ego is wrapped around the idea of being a musician, right? One of
Sure.
the reasons that I have such a speed of competence, not just a competence, but a speed of it in creative and intellectual endeavors, is because my ego wants to be a 7 foot tall basketballer. It doesn't want to be a creative. It doesn't want to be an intellectual. And it makes me so much quicker than people who do. Because I just know, nah, that sounded right, nah, that didn't. I can come right off a performance and be like, yeah, I fucked that up. Because I'm not
Mm.
like I'm not trying to impose the identity at all. And that's something that like people are like worried about constantly. Um, and the 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 martial artists of like China were huge on this. They're like, you give someone who's never been taught how to fight before, you throw them in a fight, they act off instinct, and that's the strongest thing they have going for them is they have no lag. They have no lag between recognizing what they're looking at and their instinct. You have to use the technique, and then you have to use the technique in controlled conditions, and then you have to use the technique in uncontrolled conditions, and only then do you regain your instinct. Technique is a burden. It is a burden between you and the purity of your expression. And until you can not only carry that on your back, but also move at speed once it's on your back, it's moving you away from your purity of expression. Dad warned me about this. I said, "Can you teach me music? Like, I want you to give me the whole, you know, scales and the teach me to read sheet music." He said, "I'm not doing that with you." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "That'll ruin you." Tim and Neil Finn can't read music.
The classical
Yeah.
education methodology doesn't work for everyone.
Yes. Oh, this is what made Leonardo da Vinci as well, is that his education was through active pursuance of his own interest.
Mhm.
And that's just a better use of a dopamine circuit. It just is. So his retention and his recall were higher than people he was equivalent to.
Hey,
Hence why it got expressed creatively.
I'm not breaking